welcome. So happy to have you here. And this is I'd say, a unique episode. And it's been years in the making because I am learning alongside you guys, right? I am, I say I'm an expert in feeding, but I am also just a parent who's learning as well, this my view on feeding has evolved over time. I mean, for sure. I mean, a parent who met me before I had my child, I approached feeding 100% differently than we do now. So it has changed over time. Which is why I try not to, I talk sometimes about how maybe other therapists, they just don't know, because that was me. At one point, I didn't know either. I thought I knew because I had been to school and I had learned things, but I didn't really learn what to do with feeding. And really, I don't really know anyone who comes out of school with the knowledge that I have accumulated, trying to specialize in this area, right? But even still, even with that, the point is, over time, my view has changed a little bit, and I've adopted pieces of each training that I have done and sort of created like my own sort of, I guess, way of doing things, right? And that's typically what most therapists will do, right? You learn something, you have a tool, you put it in your toolbox, right? That's what they always say. More tools in the toolbox is a very common saying amongst therapists, right? But what I have learned is that trust and connection with your child has been the biggest game changer. And, I'm totally going to be honest. I am for sure one of those parents that just sits and scrolls on their phone while their child is playing over there, doing something, or watching TV. I'm for sure not that perfect parent who's sitting there with them, watching them, talking, connecting with them at all times. So I'm far from perfect. So I absolutely understand when you have that busy life and it's go, go, go. I was absolutely doing that too. But the more I have, and every year I have a goal to do less of that, right? More connection, more being present, and less of the scrolling, less of the distracted time, divided attention. So that's always been my goal. And every year I get, I think, a little bit closer to that. But I think the closer I get to that goal, it actually has shifted my practice a little bit, because I see the benefits of that one-to-one connection. And, when I looked into the science of it, there is actually a lot supporting that. And I think the more one-to-one attention I give my son, that's not on my phone, that's not him watching TV or whatever, that we're actually playing and doing together, I find that his eating improves. Right? So I've, sort of been pondering, developing this conclusion over time, but I think I'm ready to share it. But it's basically about the connection and trust, which isn't like a completely new concept. I'm not saying that like I invented a new concept, because I didn't. I think that was always part of that SOS training. I know Melanie Potok, she talks a lot about things like that. And Nina Johnson from AIOU, she, that's always sort of a component of a lot of the trainings and things that you go through. But there is some serious brain science here about trust and connection, right? So we know that when a child, that there's something in your brain called the amygdala. And, when that fear center, the amygdala, is hyperactive, when there is, anxiety or low trust, right? When you're feeling pressured, when you're feeling unsafe, They go into that fight or flight, that cortisol goes up in their system, and it's just much harder for kids to engage with food. But we know the opposite is that oxytocin, or the love hormone, right? They say that that's that, that bonding and what you get from a newborn baby and blah, 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 all of that nonsense. Anyway, not nonsense, but that oxytocin is like the opposite, that it builds connection, which releases, that trust builds connection, and that releases oxytocin, or the bonding love hormone. And oxytocin reduces stress like cortisol. It calms the nervous system, right? Does the opposite. Creates an environment where you can be curious, right? And when they've done studies, not specifically about feeding, but when those centers are very active, like we know when kids are highly stressed, they're not able to learn as well. Like that is well documented. We know that when there's oxytocin and kids feel connected and bonded with their families, they are more curious, they're more open, they're exploring, and they don't have that same fear, right? So one of the most powerful ways that we can harness the power of this hormone is to spend uninterrupted one-on-one time with our kids. But I'm not talking about meal times, actually. I'm talking about outside of meal times, because if the only time that you're spending uninterrupted time is meal times, and that is a stressful situation, it might not be the best time to get that oxytocin flowing, especially if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're expecting them to do something. They can feel all of that. So that's actually not maybe the best time to spend one-to-one time. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying you also, I think, need to do it outside of the mealtime in a completely different environment, right? And different environment, I mean, like not at the table, like maybe in the living room, maybe in their bedroom or in the playroom or outside with them, right? That's what I mean. So, just the time together will help them to feel seen and heard. It'll help, that foundation for connection. But I know you're busy. I know you're going to say, but I barely have 5 minutes. I know you've got work, you've got to-do lists. Then we have our phones, which are the biggest distraction ever. It's really, really hard to stay present. And I know, because I've been trying to do it for years, right? Like I said that. But here's the thing. Our kids absolutely know when we are with them 100% undivided time and when we have divided, distracted time on our phones. In fact, there have been many times where my son has said, "Mommy, it's time to put your phone down now." And doesn't that make you feel special? Right? I mean, that is always the worst when they call you out on it. You're like, "Oh, damn it." But even just 10 or 15 minutes a day can make a huge world of difference, right? Play a game. We have a whole list of games that you could play, even relating to food, but they don't have to be food. You can read a book. And again, we have a whole list of books about food you can read, but it doesn't have to be a book about food. It could just be you reading a book, any book with your child. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it does need to be consistent, right? So just sit down, you can talk to them. You can, play, just kind of roughhouse with them. You can be silly. You can just give hugs and spend time, they will, that connection time will pay off in dividends. Maybe not that day, maybe not tomorrow, but it will pay off, because I have seen it pay off. Not just once, not just with me, but with other kids too. So here's a challenge I'd love to present to you this week. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Put your phone on silent, or literally leave it in a totally different room. And just spend something doing, like, I don't know, whatever your child loves to do, just sit and do that with them. If they love coloring, you just sit and color with them. If they love playing with Bluey, you just play Bluey with them. Or if they want to just talk, you just talk. If they want to read books, you read books. But give them your full attention. And the only thing I would say is if they're on their tablet or if they're watching TV, well, then their attention is divided. So it has to be something outside of that. Okay. But something outside of that, I'm sure there is at least one thing we can find that your child could enjoy doing. And this might feel like a small thing. It might feel like it's a thing that's completely unrelated to food, and you really only want to work on and learn about things that have to do with making progress with food. But those interrupted times with your child is going to send them the message that you love them, that you value them, you're important to them. They're important to you, I should say. And that connection will carry over to many areas of your life, their life, including food, but other areas as well, right? And it's not about being perfect. So we're all going to have days where we're overwhelmed or distracted, but a little intentional connection can make a big difference. Think of it as like a long-term investment in your relationship with your child, and it'll pay off at the table and beyond the table, right? So, I can't really stress enough that there is this piece missing in a lot of our daily interactions with kids. And it's because our schedules are so busy. And it's because I almost feel like there's an intentional, it's like someone's trying to intentionally make us all disconnected, It's like, well, they got to be in school for 7 hours a day, and then they've got to go to their extracurriculars. But think about how much time you actually spend with your child. Like, think about it. I know you've got a crazy day because from the moment you wake up, you've got to just start getting things ready. So yeah, you're with them, but you're not spending time with them. You're getting their lunch together, getting their snacks ready, getting them dressed, making sure they've peed, making sure they've brushed their teeth, getting them into the car, making sure their shoes are on. That's like, I don't want to say busy work. It's very important work. It's necessary work, but it's not connection time. It's just checking things off. It's like, okay, we did this. Okay. And then you move on to the next part of your day where they're at school for 7 hours, you're at work for 7 hours. Then you see them when they get off the bus. Hi, great. Now it's time to go to our next activity. And you shuttle them in the car and maybe you talk for a few minutes. But again, you're distracted. You're driving. Obviously, you're driving, you're distracted. So it's not complete one-to-one attention. Okay. So then they're at their activity. You're probably on your phone while they're at their activity doing their thing. Great. Pick them up, maybe bring them home. Now it's time for you to make dinner, right? So again, you're distracted. You're making dinner. You're not really with them. They're doing their homework. They're on their phone. They're watching TV. They're playing with their toys while you're doing this thing. Then you're cleaning up after dinner. You're getting them ready for bedtime. When do you spend the time to just sit and play, right? Think about it. And maybe it'll make you cry when you're like, oh my God, I don't spend any time. That was my goal. It's just an awareness piece because it's really easy to get sucked into the go, 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 and forget about this really important, really vital piece. And what do we do all this for? What are we, you want the best for them, right? You want to try to send them to the best school. You want them to get the best therapist. You want them to go to all the classes so that they're well-rounded and they're having fun and they're making friends. And then you have to then you do play dates so that they're right. You're doing it because you love them, right? But the best way to show them that you love them is just spending that one-to-one connected time. So, I would say I have some strategies I can give you. I'm not saying you have to quit your job, homeschool your kids. If you want to do that, I am so backing you. I love that. But I'm not saying that you have to do that to make this work too. Okay. There are ways, and I've talked about this in other episodes about maybe cutting back on some of the extracurriculars, right? So that you do have some time at home with your kids. That's not just go, go, go doing things time. Okay. There's also, you can also, like I said, you can try to set that timer. You can also, I know sometimes weekends are better, but the weekdays are much longer than the weekends, right? And I'm not saying, I bet your weekends are pretty packed too, if I had to guess, but sometimes the weekdays are where we need that time most, right? So, you know, you can have them join you in doing some things like cooking. We've talked about that before. But I'd say even if you have to, do a night where you just order in food because it'll give you back some of that time, I'd say that's a good strategy. Or do, something like plan so that you have an easier meal. Maybe something that's just that you're heating up, or maybe if you can cook some things over the weekend so it's less that you have to cook during the week. We talk about this in the routines lesson in my Mealtime mindset book and my course, but doing some of the things like that can take the pressure off of you in the evening. Also, I know everyone's got to clean their house. If you can have someone come and help once a week, once every 2 weeks, just to do the big stuff, and you just kind of do the tidying, it might give you some of that time back too. I know that's not feasible for everybody, but you might find that it's not as expensive as you're thinking, and it might really alleviate some of the stress of you having to do absolutely everything, right? Some other strategies about maybe some bonding things you could do regarding mealtime, and we've talked about this many times before, but those consistent routines always create stability and security, which kids love and thrive on, right? So predictable, consistent schedules and environments, because kids know what to expect. Make mealtime about the connection, not about controlling. So don't turn it into a power struggle. Don't force them to eat anything. Don't tell them to take a bite. Focus on talking about their day, playing little games, sharing stories. Try that for a bit, okay? Back off, take off the pressure, put on the connection, okay? You can engage in food-related activities out of mealtime, right? Cooking, going shopping for food, gardening. These are low-pressure activities that can help your child feel more comfortable with food in like a more fun way. Okay. In you changing your language, right? This is big. We talk about this in Mealtime Mindset book, and big part of my course is what to say, what not to say, right? We don't want to make any demands, make any requests. You could use phrases like, what do you think that smells like? Or can you guess what this would taste like? Right? Instead of saying things like, you need to try this, or you should be trying this, or did you try this yet? Do you see the difference? We're sort of inviting a conversation in the first one versus making a demand or request from them. Okay. Last, you can model trust and patience, right? So let them see you enjoying food. Let them see you being curious about new things, talking about food, describing it. If they see that you're calm and confident, they'll start to mirror that energy. Might not be right away, but the more consistent you are in the language about that, they will adopt it. Okay. So I hope this has been an enlightening episode. I hope this gave you some food for thought. Food for thought. There you go. I hope that you're able to take my challenge and do the 15 minutes. It is amazing that when they really feel so comfortable and trusting, they know that you're not going to trick them. They know you're not going to do anything that they don't like. They know that you're going to be there to help them through whatever comes next after they take that bite. That's what's going to make them be curious about food. And that you can't replace that trust and connection at all. right? It has to come from you. It shouldn't be coming from a therapist. It shouldn't be coming from their teacher at school. It really has to be from their parents, right? That is going to be the success that you're looking for, where they're eating for you at home, where they're eating for you at the restaurant, on vacation. It's going to be because they trust you. You're the person that's with them at the time, and that's why they're trying it. That's why they're eating now. Okay. So don't leave out this really, really, really key piece of the puzzle. All right. And again, if you need our help, you know where to find us. If you feel like you need some guidance from me, unlockingmealtimes.com is the best way. That's my program. That's how I help my parents and teach my parents exactly how to get their kids to love food. And yeah, we will see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.